Hey everybody, and welcome to the Spot of Spots vlog. Today we're going to take a look at some common chord modulations in the song Comin' with the Rain by Taylor Swift. First thing to say, so there's no confusion of terms, is that the common chord modulation, or key change, can also be called a pivot chord modulation. And you can remember that by thinking about how a basketball player has to pivot on the same foot, or their common foot, when they want to pass the ball to another player, or in our case, a new key. Okay, let's get rolling. Left to right. As you can see here, the key of D major has the ball first for about 50 seconds. And then it's like, playing the G chord, which is a 4 and D, and then the A, which is the 5, and then back to G, and then C. There's your modulation, baby, at 52 seconds. So, but what's exactly happening here? What is that slick Nashvilleian Taylor Swift up to? Well, first thing to point out is the common chord itself, here colored in blue. It's a G major chord that functions as the 4 in D major, but it's also the diatonic 1 in a new key, G major. And real quick, going back to the basketball analogy, you can think of this whole diatonic thing as the ball getting passed to a player on the same team, or on your side, or at least on your same side of the circle of fifths. And if you know anything about the circle of fifths, though, you'll know that G and D are right next door to each other on the wheel. And that means their key signatures are only going to have a one-note difference. And this means with all those common notes, there's going to be a lot of commonality with the chords. It's going to be a lot of pivots and a lot of people to pass the ball to. Okay, speaking of that only one-note difference, there it is, right there, in the C major chord. You see, in the key of D, C is regularly sharped as the leading tone, or 7th scale degree. Because of this, if there was no key change and we were still in the key of D, we'd have to call it a flat 7, shown right here in parentheses. But since we did modulate, it's really a 4. Last thing I want to talk about concerning this first modulation, for now, is the dominant function of the common chord. See, if you single out just these two chords, G and C, it's plain as day that this is a dominant 5-1 cadence in the key of C, right? Oh, but real quick, here's all a dominant 5-1 cadence is. You got your G, that's the thumb, you got your C, that's the pinky. In the middle, you go down the alphabet. G, F, E, D, C. And the cadence is just thumb, pinky, or G, C, or 5-1, or dominant resolution to the root. If you got 5 fingers and you know the first 7 letters of the alphabet, frontwards and backwards, you'll always be able to tell if any chord change you come across is dominant. Okay, but here, since we're not in the key of C, but passing from D to G major, we're obliged to think of this particular 5 down to the 1 as a secondary dominant. Either like a 5, a flat 7, or a 5, a 4. And I know there's some people who are uncomfortable with calling something a 5, flat 7, because flat 7 isn't diatonic. However, in the pop music of today, the flat 7 is arguably the next most popular chord after the holy trinity of the 1, the 4, and the 5 chords. So it's becoming arguable just how non-diatonic it really is in many cases. But that's a whole other topic with no clear answers, and if you're interested though, here's a link to a vlog that talks more about that. Alright, on to the second modulation, or we could call it the return modulation. It picks up here with E minor, which is a minor 6 in G, and then C, which is a 4, and then we just float right on into the D, and there's your modulation, or your return of the key. Return of the key. Okay, so what happened here? Well, we can start wrapping our head around it by seeing that D is a 5 chord in the old key, and the 1 chord, or root chord, in the key we're returning to, D major. So, bang, common chord, pivot, pass, dribble, 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 shoot. Simple enough, but one big difference you might notice about this key change, first heard at 1:23 by the way, is that this time the so-called common chord, or pivot chord, starts the modulation instead of acting as the setup chord like it does in the previous modulation. So yeah, they're on opposite sides of the fence, so to speak. And that, my friends, is what you call variety. Okay though, then you might be asking yourselves, what sets up this modulation since the common chord didn't do it? Well, we can point to 2 things. First is that the C chord, which remember would be a flat 7 chord in the original key, is acting in a sort of dominant way. I say sort of dominant way because people in the music theory community still argue whether a flat 7 to 1 chord progression should be termed dominant, in the same way that thumb pinky 5-1 and diminished 7s to 1s are. So yeah, for this reason, we only sort of underlined this sort of dominant. I don't know, maybe I think they should maybe find a new word for it, but for now, dominant. I like to use it in cases like this. Oh, by the way, real quick, another tonal trend tidbit to point out here is that common chord modulations are almost always followed by the 5 in the new key. And that's more or less true in both of these cases. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out quick as another way to recognize these babies. Here, colored in red, following 5s. Okay, the other way the second modulation sets itself up nicely is by inserting an extra measure right here before the modulation, call it a mod measure. I say extra in as much as all the other parts of the song so far are your standard 4-measure phrases. But when you add this extra mod measure, it makes the phrase 5 measures total. And this is a slick trick because since our brains have been thus far conditioned to expect changes every 4 measures, we're less likely to notice it when a 5th measure change slips past our defenses. Incidentally, there's also one of these extra mod measures inserted before the final modulation of the first type. Look for it at around 3 minutes and 4 seconds when you hear the arpeggio that uses the plucked string harmonics. It's the same slick trick. Get us used to hearing something one way, then change it just enough so that we're surprised, but not enough to where the surprise distracts from the music, you know? Like change a little bit, you know? Okay, last I want to point out one more slick trick our favorite Nashvilleian uses to smooth out her key changes. So yeah, we've already seen the slickness of the only one key difference, the common pivot chords, the dominance and the flat 7 sort of dominant commonness. And we've talked about the slickness of the mod measure. But while an extra measure is a delay in time, a third way things get smoothed out is delay in getting to the root of the new key. See, in the first modulation, you can see that the root chord is delayed by 2 chords after the modulation itself. And here you can see that even the unflappable following 5 is delayed by a chord. It makes for a very slow, gentle turning, one dial click turning of that circle of fifths. So yeah, I hope you like this Spotter Spots vlog, and I wish you all the best in recognizing and using these common chord modulations, dominant functioning chords, extra mod delay measures, delayed roots, and following 5s in the music you like, and especially in your own music, just like Taylor Swift does. Okay, and don't forget to like us and follow us and stuff, and we'll see you next time here at the tonaltrends.com music vlogs. Do, 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 do.
My lord, there will be a time to grieve for Boromir, but it is not now. Verse 2 is coming. Additional lyrics are on your doorstep. As steward, you are charged with the modulations of this city. Where are Gondor's dominant functions? You think you are wise, Mithrandir, yet for all your inserted extra modulation measures, you have not wisdom. Do you think the eyes of the coarse are blind? I have been repeated more than you know. Oh yes, word has reached my ears of this common chord, son of common Thord. And I tell you now, I will not bow to this pivot from the circle of fifths, last of a chromatic house, long bereft of a leading tone. Authority is not given to you to deny the return of the original key, steward. Rule of this Taylor Swift song is mine, and no others. Well, fine, here's a fireball.